Have you ever been so scared of a game that it becomes difficult to play? You have to walk down a foggy trail, peek into a pitch-black bathroom, inch ever closer to a piercing scream in the distance. That fear that causes your hands to shake and mind to go blank. It's both a genre that has a rabid following and can keep people away at the same time. Today, we are taking a deep dive into my personal favorite horror games. What makes a good horror game? Well, there is no one solid answer. Our tastes in horror are completely subjective. There are even cases of people being afraid of games that are not classified in the horror genre. But before we go anywhere, I feel it is important to state my origin. My introduction to the horror genre is an extremely odd starting point. Most people would say their first horror game was Resident Evil or perhaps Silent Hill. My story begins on a little title created by Squaresoft. The year was 2000 and I was 9 years old at the time. I had an older neighborhood friend who was essentially my mentor. He told me that he got a new game and asked if I wanted to check it out. We go over to his house and he boots up a game I've never heard of before, Parasite Eve 2. The game starts off slow enough. You play as Special Agent Aya Brea, who is part of MIST, Mitochondrian Investigation and Suppression Team. Simply put, you're a monster hunter. During a slow night of training, you get called to Acropolis Tower. When you arrive at the scene, there is already a downed helicopter and cops surrounding the tower. They tell you that a SWAT team was sent in moments ago and is not responding. Now, as a kid, nothing was more elite than the SWAT team. Nothing! When I heard that the SWAT team was not responding, I was like, against my better judgment, we go into the building. Once the elevator doors open up, we find a brutally torn apart SWAT team. We manage to find a wounded SWAT member taking cover behind a soda machine. He tells us there is a woman still alive in a cafeteria nearby. He gives us the key to unlock the door and we head off to rescue her. We arrive at the cafeteria, unlock the door, and we see our damsel in distress just sitting there, almost as if nothing's wrong. Something doesn't seem right here. We slowly make our approach. This moment right here is the exact point where I was truly introduced to the horror genre. The grotesque transformation would give me nightmares for a long time to come. Now this game is what I'd like to consider as traditional survival horror. Of course it's scary because of its visuals and scenarios, but the true noteworthy feature is the lack of control. This lack of control is really what made the survival horror genre shine with Resident Evil and Silent Hill. The tension of not being able to run away or defend yourself properly is what made games like this so scary. It is a staple of the horror genre. But there was one more incident here that really drove home the fact that I was playing a new genre. Sure, it's scary to see a monster transform right in front of you, but something that can really make your mind race is what you don't see. Later in the game, we find ourselves heading to a place called Dryfield. It looks like an old abandoned roadside stop. Now eventually, you will end up in front of an abandoned house. The fixed camera angle focuses on a single door, and from outside, you can hear this. A woman is clearly in trouble and my inner hero was quick to go to the rescue. The screams are now louder, and as we move to the back of the room, the volume only increases. Clearly the screams are coming from behind this dresser, but as any horror game would entail, we have to go back and find a wrench to remove the bolts. Now, because we were just two dumb kids, somehow we couldn't find a wrench to save our lives. As we explored the place, we kept wandering back to the area where the screams were coming from, and I always remember feeling a sense of urgency. We have to find that wrench! That lady doesn't have much time! We're taking too long! Obviously, the scream plays on a loop forever, and there is nothing to worry about. But we didn't know that! The exact same scream track is used in a famous movie from 2002, and it gave me flashbacks to this game. And that is where my origin point ends. We never found the wrench. That woman is still out there, screaming for all eternity. My point is, even with no visuals, good audio will make the player come to their own conclusions. That is good horror. If I was to sit here and list off all of my favorite horror games, we'd be here for hours. And I don't want people to think that I don't care about these titles, so I'll give a quick shout out to a few. The Evil Within, Resident Evil, Amnesia, Outlast, Fear, Fatal Frame, Siren Blood Curse, the list goes on. I've spent a lot of time playing multiple horror games over the years, but the title I want to talk about next is a little gem developed by Visceral Games. In 2008, we got to feast our eyes on this.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. If you did not twinkle.
We've all heard of, or at least played, Resident Evil 4 at this point. This game was setting out to carry on the legacy that RE4 left behind. We play as engineer Isaac Clarke, who volunteers to go on a mission responding to a distress signal coming from the USG Ishimura. He volunteers because his girlfriend who works on the Ishimura sent him this.
Isaac, it's me. I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything.
Worried for her safety, he joins a small response team and goes to the rescue. Of course, things go wrong, and after a rough landing, you and your crew are now stranded on the ship. You come to find that the place is completely empty. There are a number of suitcases packed at the docking station. People wanted to get out of here in a hurry. You head to one of the terminals to check on the diagnostics report. The ship has sustained a lot of damage, but luckily the air filtration system turns back on again.
What the hell was that?
Automatic quarantine must have tripped when the filtration system restarted. Everybody relax.
What was that? Did you hear that?
Not sure.
The hell? I don't know. Something's in the room with us.
Jesus! Open fire! Open fire! Get the power!
Come on. Got it!
Isaac! Get the hell out of there!
The door's unlocked! Run!
Run, Isaac! Get the hell out of there!
Having to run away from this is something that would give any player a heart attack right on the spot. The next room we find ourselves in has a message written in blood on the wall: cut off their limbs. We also find our first weapon, but just outside of the room we can hear a man yelling for help, so we rush to his aid. Now this game is definitely survival horror, but with the added benefit of better controls. A layer of tension no longer comes from a lack of control, but rather intense combat. We've evolved to action horror. Many people, however, think action horror is a disgrace to the horror genre altogether, but Dead Space was so loved that it went on to spawn 4 more video games and 2 animated movies. Also, how can I not mention the intro to Dead Space 2?
Listen, you're in terrible danger.
Now, if we go back to Dead Space 1, later in the game, we find ourselves opening a door leading to a hallway. Right along the corner, we can see a man crawling with the last bit of life he has left. Then, just out of sight, we hear... This is the Divider. As you can see, he is very tall and skinny, but can take quite a punch. And when he is finally downed, his limbs break off and act as their own monster. Now, the factor that really made him stick with me is that loud groan he lets out just before you see him. This is a direct reference to the Regenerators from Resident Evil 4. Look familiar? I love that even Dead Space has its own scary sounding monster. When I think of Dead Space, I don't think of the yelling necromorphs, I think of the Divider. The developers at Visceral were able to take the control scheme of RE4 and improve upon it, leading to both high-tension environment traversal and heart-pounding combat. The best of both worlds. It doesn't get any better than this, right? When people talk about the scariest games of all time, the most common titles I hear are Amnesia, Condemned, and PT. But what comes to my mind is Silent Hill 2. We play as James Sunderland, who comes to Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his wife Mary, who died 3 years ago. A dead person can't write a letter. She states that she went back to Silent Hill alone and is waiting for him in their special place. James, obviously confused by this letter, sets out to find his dead wife. Could she still be alive? Now, this game is well known for its ambience and tone. Just listen to the music that plays right after the cutscene. This music, this ambience, it's something else. It doesn't only set the tone for this abandoned, dirty town, it also sends a shiver down my spine. The camera angle guides us down a flight of stairs leading to a forest path. Nothing to accompany you but the unsettling music, sound of your footsteps, and the most intense fog you've ever seen. You can't even see 10 feet in front of you. This lack of vision coupled with everything already is enough to make your mind melt with fear. But suddenly... something is out there in the fog, and I'm not willing to stick around to find out what it is. We push past and find a gate leading to a cemetery where we meet another person.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry. I
No,
was
it's
just...
okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
Yeah. I'm looking for Silent Hill. Is this the right way?
Yeah, but
Yes?
I think you'd better stay away. It's kind of hard to explain, but
Is it dangerous?
maybe. And it's not just the fog either.
Okay,
It's...
I got it. I'll be careful.
I'm not lying.
No, I believe you. It's just... I guess I really don't care if it's dangerous or not. I'm going to town either way.
We receive a warning not to head into town, but we must find Mary. Nothing is more important. As we progress further into town, we find blood at an intersection and get our first glimpse at one of the monsters. Of course, as horror game logic 101 states, we must follow the thing. The trail leads us to a dead end where we hear a little radio making a loud static noise. We head through the barricade to pick up the radio when this happens.
Is it dead?
Now, obviously the monster we fought wasn't the most difficult or terrifying, but that's the beauty of Silent Hill. It doesn't focus on difficult bosses or jump scares. It's all about psychological horror. Probably the best branch of the horror genre there is. The first 10 minutes of Silent Hill already cements it as one of the best horror games even to this day. There's so much more to explore with this game though. The feeling of being lost in a town filled with monsters. The claustrophobia of the apartment's halls with the introduction to Pyramid Head as he stares at us from the other side of some iron bars. The unexplainable behavior of everyone you come across. Are they all crazy? Am I crazy? That is the brilliance of psychological horror. You question reality, you trust no one, and you drive yourself insane. I know I couldn't cover every horror game I loved without making this video way too long, but I hit some of my top favorites. I did want to give a couple of quick mentions from some other horror games that I really enjoyed too. A game that particularly doesn't get a lot of love, Siren Blood Curse. At the beginning of the game, you have to hide from a police officer that's trying to hunt you down. You find shelter in a nearby house and take cover in the closet, and you are treated to this lovely view. Silent Hill 4 for making you traverse your apartment in first person. All the previous Silent Hill games were played in the third person perspective. It really shook up the series by making your safe zone only explorable in first person. Later in the game, your apartment becomes haunted by demons, and this was my particular favorite haunting. And lastly, The Evil Within 2, a horror game that is a love letter to the horror genre, and this is my particular favorite moment.
What the hell?
If you want to yell at me for how dumb my favorites are, you can personally reach me on my Twitter at BloodCell47. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I edit these projects on my own and it takes a lot of work making them, so I'd really appreciate the support. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.